What is going on, everyone? A huge thank you for clicking on the video. I greatly appreciate that, as always. Now, today I am finally back with yet another Demake physical cartridge video. That's right, Demake, not ROM hack. And this time I'm going to be taking a look at none other than Rocket League, or as it's better known now as Pocket League for the Gameboy Color. Rocket League is one of the biggest, most popular multi-platform multiplayer games of all time. If you haven't played it, you've probably heard of it. It's everywhere now. It's in Fortnite now, for God's sakes. I mean, this thing has infiltrated everywhere. And someone has taken it upon themselves to now demake that game for the Game Boy Color. I absolutely love demakes. I've taken a look at a few of them on the channel before, Pokemon, Mario, that good stuff. But this time, it's Pocket League. And I just love them because you never know what they're going to change, what they're going to have to remove, maybe sometimes even add new features to the game. But before we jump into that, we're going to take a look at this awesome physical cartridge and case here. And quite the unique case it is. You've maybe seen this stuff online before. I know I have. This is actually a repurposed cassette case. It's actually being used to how it's a replacement, It's much more interesting, in my opinion at least, than the ones that we typically take a look at, like the repurposed DS cases. Those are nice. I like the size of them and the look of them. They definitely look good. But something about this, now that I got my hands on it at least, it just feels nice. It's nice, small, compact. It's not going to take up a lot of room. And it's definitely more fitting of the Game Boy era. Cassettes, right? I mean, those were still a pretty big thing back when the Game Boy Color was around. And overall, I'm very impressed with how this looks. I've seen a lot of people online do like Pokemon. That's the main one I've seen. They print off, Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, Crystal, whatever, and they use that to house their loose cartridges, which I think is awesome. I've never used one before until now. I think this is really neat, though. I'm really digging the way that this all looks. Now, you may notice here this says Swerve Studios instead of Game Boy Color. Normally, I want them to just say Game Boy Color. I want it to match everything. But if I'm not mistaken, so Swerve Studios is actually who I bought this product from. And if I'm not mistaken, feel free to correct me down below if I am wrong, but I do believe Swerve Studios is actually the same people who made Pocket League, which is honestly really cool. And if that is the case, then I have no complaints about Swerve Studios being up there, because this is like a wombo combo, which we don't typically see. It's not usual that the creator of the ROM hack, or I guess in this case Demake, is also selling the product, which I think is just really cool. Like I said, it's a wombo combo. You don't get to see that all too often in this space, so I really have no complaints with the physical look. Honestly, I think it's awesome. You got to put your name out there somehow. We obviously have it down there as well. But just in general, yeah, Swerve Studios, huge shout out. This is a really neat product that I've been taking a look at here. I'm super impressed, and I just think it looks great. Yeah, we got the spine here also looking very good. Now here you can actually see the cartridge itself on the back here. And again, I always like to say, despite any Nintendo branding you might see on here, I always like to say this is like an art piece, if you will. So even though there's Nintendo branding on here, it's just for the sake of like blending in and looking apart, But it's not an official Nintendo product in any way, shape, or form. It's just meant to kind of look cool. Now we'll go ahead and open this up finally. And before we take a look at the cartridge here, we have one more thing I want to look at here. And that is the inside of this cassette case, this front. I don't really know what to call this, but I'm going to dub this. This is sort of like the instruction manual for the cassette case. I really like the attention to detail and the commitment to making this look the part. Like, this just looks nice. I don't know, like when I've seen these cassettes online, I don't know if I've ever actually seen the other side of people's. I feel like if anything, it's either blank or maybe they just, kind of print the same thing on the back again. I'm not 100% sure, but not in this case. In this case, they actually, like I said, they kind of made like a little instruction booklet for the game, and it's very simple. It's honestly a lot like real Rocket League. There's not a whole lot to it. There's like 3 controls: move, boost, and jump. Pretty simple, right? And of course we have a how to play here: speed, jump, and flip around the map and try to get the ball in the opposing net. First to 5 wins. Let me try and focus that there for you. Yeah, honestly, like I said, the attention to detail I think is really neat. This could have just been, like I said, reprinting that on the back, but they didn't. They went the extra mile to make this just look really neat. And like I said, I think this looks really cool. Now here we have what appears to be, I'm assuming, a 3D printed like bracket or case. And I mean, it holds in there pretty good. It's not wiggling around or anything. It's pretty sturdy. And I think generally when I see these cassette cases, people usually use foam, which that was the only thing I was kind of expecting it to be foam. I wasn't actually expecting this 3D bracket, but I think either way looks pretty good. I'm not going to complain either way. I know some people don't really love the 3D print look, but honestly, this looks pretty good. Obviously, there's like a little hiccup right there maybe, but it's a bracket. It's not really super important. Either way, I think it looks good. You could go foam, you could go 3D print. Either way, I really like the way that looks. I'll go ahead and pop that off there. And yes, this is the actual cartridge for Pocket League here. And I went with green. I did have a couple color options. There was like blue, I think was the only other one I think I was contemplating, sorry. But there's like red, a couple translucent ones, which I'm not a huge fan of translucent. Those are pretty hit or miss, but I decided to go green because, as you can tell, there's a lot of grass in the game. You know, you're playing on a field, essentially. I felt like that kind of represented the game color a little bit more. Blue was probably my second pick. As you can see, there's blue right there, but I figured green would be the way to go. And of course, I will go ahead and show the board for anybody who may be interested in what that looks like. I've been trying to do that more. I've had a few people request I do that, but there you have it. As you can imagine, there's no battery with this game. I don't imagine there's going to be any saving function in this game. I don't really think that there would be a need to, but there is a place for a battery if there were something that required it. Of course, we have a black blob there, and I guess I'll go ahead and pop that out, show the back of that as well. This is what we're working with, something branded 2017. Again, I'll always say this, I wish I knew more about these things. I really don't know all the subtle differences between boards, but I imagine this is a pretty rudimentary, nothing too crazy type of board. It's going to get the job done, though. So in my personal opinion, I think the physical aspect of this whole thing is, check it out, Swerve Studios. I really like the cassette look. What can I say? It looks really nice, but there is one more thing that we need to do in this video, and that is, of course, see if this game works, see if there's any sort of wonkiness with it. So let's go ahead and pop this into the Game Boy and see what's up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are finally with Pocket League for the Game Boy Color, and I do have some news to deliver. This game works. I had no issues with the game whatsoever. It runs smoothly. It really does feel like something I would have played back in the day. This feels like an authentic Game Boy game, and I guess in a sense it kind of is. Like I said, this is a Demake. I imagine this is built from the ground up. This isn't like a hack, you know? So, in my opinion at least, I think this game runs smoothly. It feels great. I love it. But more importantly, the more important news I want to deliver is that I am terrible at it. Just like the real Rocket League, I suck at this game so much. I lose way more than I do win. But just because you suck at something doesn't mean you can't have a fun time. And I had an absolute blast playing Rocket League. 10 out of 10 fun across the board. Now, as you can imagine, there is some cut content from here. You know, the real Rocket League, it's a lot about customization, right? You know, you got different car parts and pieces, different goal explosions, different fields that you play on as well. There's tons of depth to a very simple game there. Pretty much all that's gone here. You know, there is no customization, there is no different fields or anything like that, no car parts or explosions. This is pretty simple. This definitely feels like something that would have came out of the air. There's not a whole lot to it, but just because there's not a whole lot to it doesn't mean it's a bad game. It is a super fun game, an absolute blast. You're going to have a fun time when you play this game. There weren't any real glitches that I can think of. The only, I guess, wonkiness to this is that occasionally the ball would like get in a corner and be like on top of the opposing player, and they would just sit there. They would just sit there until you kind of came back and bumped it up, and then they would immediately keep going. But other than that, I think the game runs smoothly. Now, another thing about Rocket League, the real Rocket League, is it also has different game modes that they kind of rotate in and out. I probably haven't played them all, but I know there's things like, you know, the standard game mode, there's hockey and basketball as well, and I think that's really cool. And surprisingly, I was genuinely surprised. I expected this to just be a Rocket League, but they actually do have two game modes in here. They have your standard one, which is Rocket League, or Pocket League, I should say, but then they also have a volleyball game mode. And if I'm being honest, I think I might like the volleyball one more. It is definitely, at the same time, it is harder and easier. It's way easier to score and way easier to get scored on. I think of the two game modes that I played, I've probably played more volleyball, but I've also lost way more volleyball. It's just hard. It's way easier to get scored on in that game mode. I really like the look of it all, and not just the volley mode, but the volley mode especially. It's got like this palm trees on it. I don't know, it's a very simple design, but it kind of gives me like that vaporwave aesthetic, if you know what I'm talking about. I just like the way it looks. It's a very cozy looking game. I think it's really neat. Also, I think with Volley, and I know the regular game mode, it's first to 5. I think the Volley one's like 8 or 10 or something like that. Honestly, I wasn't paying a ton of attention, but I know that it was going past 5, and I know that I lost a lot. Also, I'll go ahead and apologize right now. You know, recording this and playing it at the same time, I'm definitely a lot more shaky because you have to be more, you know, precise. It's not like Pokemon where I'm just clicking A button, clicking A button, clicking A button. You know, I got to do some movement. So sometimes, you know, I'm a little shaky, so I do apologize for any like reflection or out of focus stuff. So just know I tried my best. There's also this About page, which essentially is just a credits page. So yes, also flashing in the beginning of the game is Swerve Studios. So I have pretty much no doubt in my mind that this is in fact made by Swerve Studios. But again, if for whatever reason I'm wrong, just correct me down below. I definitely want to get the facts straight. But yeah, if you pull up the About, or like I said, the credits here, it kind of shows you everybody, or at least I believe everybody that is actually involved in this game. So huge shout out to everybody involved in making Pocket League. This is an amazing experience. The only thing I wish I would change is that I was playing on a Game Boy Pocket, but I don't have one. I think that would be cool just to kind of match everything. So yeah, huge thank you to Swerve Studios. This is just a tremendous time, you know. For me at least, like the real Rocket League, it's something that I play, you know, maybe a couple times a week, a few times a month. It's something that I can just pick up and play at any point, play for a few hours, and just have a fun time. And I think this is definitely the same way. Like I said, this isn't something that you're going to play for hours and hours and hours and just really sink your teeth into it. I mean, maybe you will, but it's definitely something that I will keep in my rotation. Something that I'd be like, you know what? Pocket League kind of sounds fun right now. You just whip it out, play it for an hour or two, and you can get your fill in, and it'll be an awesome time. I really can't recommend enough that you all check this out. If you're a Rocket League fan or just a Demake fan, you know, an enthusiast, like, just check it out. It's gonna be a fun time, no doubt. All right, that is gonna bring us to the end of this Demake video, the end of Pocket League, and I know I've said it 100 times already. I am a broken record, but Pocket League, Rocket League Demake, it is just such a fun time. It is truly an amazing experience. I am always super impressed with the Demake games, possibly, maybe even a little bit more than ROMAX. Not to put ROMAX down, that is my bread and butter on this channel. But yes, the Demakes, they never disappoint, and this continues to keep that trend up. It is such a fun time. So again, huge shout out to Pocket League and Swerve Studios. You guys should check them and check Pocket League out. It is going to be a blast. But like I said, that is bringing us to the end of the video here. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave that all down below. And if there's anything that you want to see from me in the future as well, I'm always open to new ideas. Just leave that down below. And of course, I will do my best to get back to you. But until next time, I'll see you all later.